Alright, legends, welcome along to Hellmouth Hotline. I am your host, Rodney Stewart. We're getting into another paranormal activity movie in this episode. This is The Marked Ones. Now, I was looking up online there just to get them in chronological order here, and just depending on where I've been looking here, the internet seems to be mixing them up between the Marked Ones and the Ghost Dimension. But I went on and I checked the dates, the years the movies come out, and the Marked Ones is marked down as 2014, and the Ghost Dimension is 2015. So let's go with the Marked Ones for this episode. Now, I do have to say, the Paranormal Activity movies, cash cows. They really are huge cash cows. They made a lot of money worldwide, and of course they were going to, after the success of the first three, they were going to tear the ass right out of it. Now, for me, the fourth one definitely wasn't the strongest out of the run, and I have to say, the Marked Ones didn't really enjoy this movie much, I have to say. Now, I think now out of all of them up to this point, is probably the lowest at the box office, I would think, up to this point. Like, I'm not even going to assume for what came after it, but like with everything, there is kind of a shelf life for everything, and I think by the time they got to this movie, the people were kind of, okay, we're curious about our Paranormal Activity movie, we're going to go and check it out, but they're definitely, as far as what I'm seeing here and what I can recall from prior episodes, I think this was a lower payback than most of the rest of them. And having said that, the budget for this movie was between 5 million, 9.2 million, and the box office returned a 90.9 million return on it. So it did make bank, but for me, definitely not one of the strongest ones in the series. So it begins June 2012. 18-year-old high school graduate Jesse Arista lives with his family in Oxnard, California. An apartment below his, there's a mysterious woman down there named Anna Sanchez, who everyone thinks, like, this woman's a witch. She's up to all this sketchy stuff. Eventually she's found murdered in her apartment, and Jesse and his best friend Hector spot a classmate, Oscar, running from the scene whenever the murder took place. So the two investigate the apartment. They find black magic items backing up what they think about her, VHS tapes, and a journal of spells. After they and their friend Marisol, I'm looking up the names of the characters here just to try and get them right, but having said that, me and the pronunciation of names isn't good. So yes, the three of them try out a ritual in the apartment. Paranormal occurrences start to take place in Jesse's apartment. One night the three of them communicates with an unknown entity through a game. Jesse finds a bite mark on his arm, discovers he has superhuman abilities such as levitation, which is, a new spin into the paranormal activities at this point. He later encounters Oscar, who has black eyes and the same bite in his arm. Oscar tells Jesse that something is inside them will take over and they will harm those they love before disappearing. Oscar then takes his own life. The group discovers a trap door in Anna's apartment, where they find a witch altar and photos of Jesse, his pregnant mother, Anna, Oscar, and Lois. Jesse encounters the younger versions of Kitty and Christy before being attacked by an unknown force. So as far removed as this story seems from the other stories in Paranormal Activity, they do overlap whenever you're not expecting it to. So that was a nice little touch. They're trying something new, but they're sticking with what has come before, essentially. Following this attack, he gradually becomes suicidal and violent, which disturbs Hector and Marisol. Again, probably pronounced her name completely wrong. The pair meet Arturo, Oscar's criminal brother, who puts them in contact with a girl Oscar had been talking to, Ali Ray. Ali has researched demons after her father Daniel, stepmother Christy were killed, and half-brother Hunter was kidnapped by a possessed Kitty, so again, we're overlapping. She tells him that Jesse had been marked by a worldwide coven of witches called the Midwives, who have been brainwashing women to give up their firstborn sons to create an army of possessed young men. She gives them an address to where they find a final ritual is supposed to take place, and warns that Jesse will no longer exist if the ritual is completed. Jesse cut over later on. He pushes his grandmother down the stairs, puts her in the hospital. He is later kidnapped, and I'm honestly, guys, at this point, I'm just going through stuff on the internet as far as the plot goes for this movie. As I said, didn't have a big lot of love for this one, so it's been a few months since I watched it, so I'm not going to watch it again for the sake of this podcast. But I just wanted to give some thoughts beyond it, so I'm just giving you kind of an overview of what happens within the movie. So after he hospitalizes his grandmother, he's kidnapped. Hector, Marisol, Arturo, and his friend Santo go to the address, which turns out to be Lois's house. Coven members attack, but Arturo shoots them as Hector and Marisol run inside, leaving Arturo's fate unknown. Santo and Marisol are killed. Hector is chased by the possessed Jesse, forcing them to go through a strangely marked door. And this is where the movie takes a nice little twist at the end of it. I have to say, this was interesting to finish out the movie. The door sends Hector back in time to the household of Kitty and Micah. When Kitty turns around and sees Hector in the kitchen, she screams for Micah, who assumes Hector is an intruder, and tackles him. Kitty then attacks Micah, stabs him to death with a kitchen knife, therefore showing how the first film ends. So if you do line these two up, you see the continuity there. It does play in very closely to what you've seen at the end of the very first film. Very, very well done. Hector, of course, is presumed killed by the demonic Jesse, which then picks up the camera at the end of the movie and turns it off. So again, as one of these movies, of course, set up found footage. They have to work out a way to let you see the majority of the stuff through, you know, like some audience member like going through this sort of stuff. So yeah, that's where it ends off. The only other thing I did find here in my research was an original ending. The franchise documentary revealed the original ending, which was changed to a new ending in the same house it appeared in the conclusion of Paranormal Activity 3, after surviving the uproar in the house of Lois, Hector, Arturo and Marisol take Jesse to an abandoned church, from where he supposedly successfully exorcised from the demon. But then they're attacked by a possessed guard. Minutes later, a police officer arrives there to investigate the disturbances. Jesse suddenly appears with a shotgun, and the police shoot him, while the whereabouts of Hector, Marisol and Arturo are unknown. So I reckon they switched out that ending because it would be too much of a breakaway from the original Kitty storyline. You know, there's always at the end of the movies, you know, the whereabouts of such and such were unknown, so to do that with a whole new bunch of characters would be a little bit jarring, to say the least. And then you've got two different storylines running at the same time. Let me see, theatrical release, Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, was released January 3rd, 2014 in the US, Mexican and Canadian theatres. The release date was pushed to January due to its longer and larger production. As far as home media goes, an unrated extended version along with the theatrical cut of the Mark Ones was released in DVD, Blu-ray and digital HD on April 8th, 2014. The unrated cut is roughly 17 minutes longer. The film grossed 2.6 million in home sales. So yeah, didn't do so good in the home sale market, although in the of course, in the theatres and that, did do very well. Let me see the reception for this movie. Despite predictions suggesting that the marked ones would open at number one in its debut weekend, the film took a close second to Frozen in its seventh week with about 18 million at the North American box office. By the end of the theatrical run, the marked ones grossed 32.5 million in North America, 58.4 million in our territories, for a worldwide total of 90.9 million. Let's get into the critical responses here, just to pad out this podcast just a little bit. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 39% based on 83 reviews and an average score of 4.7 to 10. The site's consensus states a change of setting breathes some new life into the franchise, but Paranormal Activity, the marked one, fails to provide enough consistent thrills to justify a fifth film in the series. I agree with that. There wasn't a great deal in here to keep you occupied mentally within the viewing of the movie. Like, I have my own personal way of gauging a movie as if it can keep you off social media. So if you're watching a movie and you find yourself scrolling on your phone, it's not doing good. Metacritic, the film has a score of 47 out of 100 based on 19 reviews, indicating mixed or average reviews. The change of setting and tone was primarily praised by critics. Mark Olson of the LA Times praised the film, saying that it feels like a fresh start. Variety critic Andrew Barker celebrated the welcome diversity and humour of the film, as did Richard Corliss of Time magazine, who summarised that the film provided the familiar cheap thrills with salsa tang. Film Inc. critic Eden Casida applauded the humour and action, but claimed that the spin-off lacks the memorable scares required for this to rate any higher than an average horror movie. I can agree with that. Eric Goldman of IGN wrote that The Marked Ones is another enjoyable chapter, while HorrorNews.net praised the lead characters' writing with an appealing pair of friends in the lead. The film provides the audience with a cast that they can root for, care for, and fear for, which serves the story and the series well. Kind of agree with that. The characters within this movie are good, don't get me wrong, they are likeable, but yeah, you just needed a little bit more in there as far as the jump scares and that went. Like the thing that really sold the first three Paranormal Activities in my mind was the way that they had set up the cameras to hopefully capture something, and just ingenious ways that they did it. But as I say, as the franchise goes on, you get a little bit of boredom setting in as far as the viewer goes, and they want something a little bit different each time, which the first three Paranormal Activities did. So I think they maybe tried a little bit too hard here, but in doing that, they kind of strayed away from what I felt was probably the thing that worked best for them. Another review here was Evan Dickinson of Bloody Disgusting, was the first to give his impressions in the film, giving it a positive review of 4.5, stating fun, scary, and remarkably cinematic within the found footage conceit. The Marked Ones might be the first Paranormal Activity movie that feels like an event film while you're watching it. Dixon also stated that it was neck and neck with Paranormal Activity 3. I'm not so sure about that now. Like, Paranormal Activity 3 was good. I enjoyed it, but as I say, when they were hitting that third one, you were kind of not getting bored of it, but it was kind of hard to get a new story and make it feel properly fresh. Yeah, let me see there. The sequel, Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, was followed by Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, released in 3D on October 23rd, 2015, and we will get into that in a couple of podcasts time. Of course, we're going to be bouncing back and forth through Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel as we continue on the uploads for this show. So yeah, it's worth a watch. Don't get me wrong. And it's nice to see how they actually managed to, for a movie that seems so far removed from what we know of paranormal activity up to this point, the way that they do manage to blend it in with the coven and whatnot and the existing storyline leading up to it. So, fairly good storytelling in there, but yeah, there's just something about it that just didn't properly hold my attention until you started to notice the connections there. But once you did and you started to kind of, okay, right, we're in the same universe here, this isn't a fully separate story. I'm more invested now than I was in the opening of this movie. Just a little bit too disjointed at the beginning there, but those actors within this movie, they're good. The chemistry's good between them, but I don't know. It's just not one of my favourites out of the Paranormal Activity movies. And yeah, we've got another couple to review in this series before we get finished with it. What's left after this? Of course, we've got the Ghost Dimension, and then there's Next of Kin, which was released in. Why are you not letting me see this? I can't get it here, but yeah, and I think Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. I'm not even going to bother looking it up right now, but I think that's the first one that wasn't made in the found footage mold, let's just say. So I'm looking forward to checking that one out. I definitely haven't seen that at this point, but that's going to do it for this episode anyway, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to share this shit on the internet and help me build up a few numbers here. If you would consider it, if you want to find out any of the other stuff I'm doing right now, there's the website coinsagemedia.com. Everything should automatically upload over there. You'll get the links to all the YouTube stuff will automatically go there anyway to get the 2 podcasts. The only other place I can send you is my Patreon, patreon.com/coinsagemedia, where I do share everything for free on there. So I'm not asking you to go there to give me any cash, but I'm going to ask you to go there to check out everything that's going on. It will be posted for free, and yes, if you do feel that you want to support the show there, really, really appreciate it as we move on and get a little bit better at doing this shit. So the only other thing, you want to contact the show, feel free to drop me an email at hellmouthhotline@gmail.com. I think that's it, guys. So until the next one, whatever you're doing, stay safe, and I will talk to you all then. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.